As you will be able to see here in just a second, I tried putting on the last bit of Bondo, and it didn't turn out really well. So just bear with this next part, please, and I'll try to move past it as quickly as I can. So here you can see kind of what I'm talking about up here with the halo from the light. There was just nothing I could do. I was borrowing a basement for the Bondo part, and it still smelled really, really bad. It not like I wasn't in fear for my life or anything, but the smell, wow, the smell of Bondo. Anyway, so I started applying it, and I learned from my first applications of Bondo, and so I put it on really, really thick. Like you can see, I mean, I'm being pretty liberal with my application of it. So liberal, in fact, that I had it dripping off, so I was having to constantly scrape off of scrape the little extras off the top and the bottom. I did the application. I had plenty of time because I didn't try experimenting with a Bondo delivery system. And so I got it on there as quickly as I could. And then once I made sure that it was everywhere I needed it, and so you can see kind of here where the Bondo was going into the divot, so you can see here where I was scraping it out that I did not mess around with the amount that I used. I didn't have a terrible amount of waste, because at the same time you can see here where there were areas that I didn't quite spread it to. And then, basically with the last little bit before it solidified too much, you can see here, because, in Tinkercad, the circle isn't a perfect circle. It's, you get the angle, a little bit of an angle, so you can kind of see the ribs of it there. And if I saw that, I knew that it wasn't quite thick enough. And so, here you can see kind of how it ended up, and it was, I felt, once it dawned on me anyway, I felt like I was icing a cake. But I got a good consistent layer all the way around. I reviewed this video before determining whether or not I'd be able to record the sanding of it, and I decided against it. It was just too... the light situation was just too terrible. So I do not have video of the sanding, but it goes pretty much exactly how the sanding for the first two applications went. So unfortunately that's it. From here we move into the putting on of the primer paint. So that's where we're headed next. Okay, so it's time to put the primer on. Before I paint it, I just want you to see, if you got to take a look at it, that's unfortunately the most footage I have of what the side of the topper looks like after I sanded it. You'll see it a little bit like as I'm painting it, but it turned out really, really well. So while I was vigorously shaking my primer there because it had sat a little while, but so as per instructions on the spray paint, you want to hold it like 6 to 10 inches away, and I like to err a little on the safe side or on the close side, so that way you get more on in a single swipe. The further you are away from it, obviously, because the paint gets more time to dissipate, you get thinner layers, so you can actually use that to your advantage if you want to do multiple thin layers. I wasn't so concerned about this, so I kept it pretty close so I could get a good coat on. You can see how well it's applying. Yeah, so there's the can. It doesn't take very long. So yeah, so you can see kind of what it looks like. Like I said, I'm sorry, and I didn't think about just grabbing, even pictures of what it looked like when it was done. That's my bad. I'm sorry. But yeah, I basically just repeat the process on this. And it's funny because I was only aiming for the areas that needed paint on it, and by the time I got both, because I do 2 coats, by the time I got both coats on, pretty much the entire topper inside and out was gray. But not that that's a big deal. I just thought it was, when I took note of it, I thought it was kind of funny. So, but yeah, it's really, really quick applying it, obviously, because it's not real big pieces. So I set them a little closer to the camera so you can see. And this becomes important when I go to the next right here, set up for the next thing. You can see on the can how there's the areas that look like drier, I guess would be the way to describe it, than the other. That's actually, the drier area is where the Bondo was, and the wetter area was where it hit bare metal. And actually it was seeing that made me for sure want to put on a second coat, because I didn't want that difference to shine through when I actually put the paint on. So yeah, I put it aside. That was what decided me to put the second coat on. And then when it comes to primer in general, in terms of the amount of coats, really it comes down to what you need. Primer is there to be like a good medium for the paint to stick to, and also a good base color, so that because believe it or not, it actually does affect the color that goes on top of it. So I generally will use a gray because I want a medium effect to the paint. If you want your base paint coat to be brighter, you use a white, and if you want it to be darker, you use a black. And so that's why I tend to go right down the middle of the line. Excuse me, with the gray. Primers are also non-gloss and anything like that, because again, you want it to be a good layer for the paint to adhere to, and glossing, it basically puts a slick finish on it so paint doesn't hold on. This whole process, you can see it's just been a few minutes and I'm already have gotten 2 full coats on. I did time lapse this a little bit, but only a small amount, just so that this episode didn't run too long. But it's not even double speed. So yeah, you can see actually on the lip there how it ended up being a little bit undesirable. And I'll talk about that more in the next section. But the reason why I picked it back up is I thought I was getting primer pooling, but that wasn't the case. So let them sit, and then now we're moving on to the paint phase. So I got everything painted. It is not 100% perfect, and I will take some pictures close up so you can see what I'm talking about, because I'm pretty sure it's not showing up right there. But it isn't 100% perfect. I don't even know how to say it. It didn't end up like it's, you can barely feel most of it, but there's some stuff that's pretty obvious. Like dents in the can that I didn't see when I was applying the Bondo. Places where I didn't quite sand it down enough. But overall, I think I did a pretty good job, and it's good enough for me to move forward on. So I'll see what I can't do when it comes to the painting. I'm not going for perfection here. I just wanted a nice little warp pipe planter. So yeah, so the can, not so much. And like I said, there are problems, and I'll take pictures so you can see them. This thing, however, turned out a lot better than I thought. The Bondo that I did on here ended up really, really good. You can, there's a little bit of mishap here, but I couldn't really get the sander into the edges, so that's where it's the worst on here. I don't think it's anything unforgivable. And then the only part that's really, really bad, and again, I'll take pictures of this so you can see it, is right here on the lip. There's some places where I didn't think it was going to give me as much problem as it did. But once I put the paint on, it just it ate up all the paint, so they're still really, really deep, of the primer anyway. So again, I'm not worried about it. I'll see what I can do with paint to mellow that out a little bit. But like I said, I'm not shooting for perfection here. I'm shooting for a nice warp pipe planter. And I think, and I'm not gonna lock it on there, but you kind of get the point here that I think it looks pretty much like it's supposed to. So I'm pretty happy with it. And so, yeah, I think from here I'm going to move on to painting, and we'll see how this thing actually ends up. And I don't know. I think I'm already pretty pleased with it. So, but yeah. So we'll see what happens next with the painting, and see if I can't minimize some of the rough areas and make it look a little bit nicer. But I think, it definitely is going to do what I want it to do. So I'm already kind of counting it a win. I'm happy. But yeah. So anyway, on to painting.